Today we continue with our narration of what is libertarianism, an introduction to the philosophy of liberty as written by Pietro Angeli, Victorian Policy Director of the Libertarian Party of Victoria here in Australia. Today we're up to chapter 6. If you go down below, you'll find the links to chapters 1 through 5. Chapter 1 was what is libertarianism, 2, what is the state, 3, what is the free market, 4, what are rights, 5, what is money, and today we move on to what is taxation. Chapter 6, what is taxation? Taxation is the time-worn practice of the state taking a portion of the wealth of its subjects by force. A king may assign tax collectors to collect his taxes, as would an emperor. The practice of collecting taxes has not changed from this initial method over time. A modern democratic state takes some of the wealth away from its citizens without their consent. If the citizens resist, they are met with force. This is the same today. Should you refuse to pay your taxes and stick to your position ardently enough and for long enough, you will eventually be imprisoned by men with guns who work for the state. A state's claim, whether that state be modern or ancient, to some of the wealth of its citizens is unilaterally decided by the state. One main difference between the taxes imposed by a king or emperor or the like, however, is the amount taxed. Traditionally, from the Roman Empire all through the Middle Ages, taxation was fixed at 10%. Over time, as modern states have expanded, they have implemented more and more methods to draw wealth away from their citizens. Some of the ways the Australian government takes from its citizens without their consent are income tax, money paid by an individual for the crime of earning money; general service tax, money paid by an individual for the crime of spending money; property tax, money paid by an individual for the crime of owning property; stamp duty, money paid by an individual for the crime of purchasing or selling property; tariffs, money paid by an entrepreneur for the crime of importing or exporting from to other countries; inheritance tax, money paid by an individual for the crime of inheriting money from a friend or relative; sin tax, money paid by an individual for the crime of purchasing an item that is deemed undesirable, such as cigarettes or alcohol; fuel excise tax, money paid by an individual for the crime of purchasing fuel for their car. This is by no means an exhaustive list. In fact, there are hundreds of insidious different ways the Government of Australia taxes its citizens. The government will also implement taxes and regulations on companies and private industries, which in turn drives up their prices, further adding costs to the individual. In practice, the average Australian pays over half of his or her total income in taxes to the government. Quote Murray Rothbard, "Taxation is theft purely and simply, even though it is theft on a grand and colossal scale which no acknowledged criminals could hope to match. It is a compulsory seizure of the property of the state's inhabitants or subjects." As elaborated in the previous free market section, these taxes are then used to pay for free services which remove competition from a myriad of markets and provide products and services of lower quality than would otherwise be available to citizens. The taxes are also used to pay for other things, such as various government incentives which are doled out around election time, various mechanisms to give money back out to citizens, often far less money than they have contributed to taxes. This looping around of money, first taxing it, then doling it out to various demographics, usually the ones targeted by the government party to achieve election, also costs money. There are countless bureaucrats employed by the government whose sole contribution is to siphon money out of private citizens' pockets and then redistribute it to the selected private citizens' pockets. Their wages are all paid for by the taxpayer and completely removed from anything resembling the free market. Quote from Milton Friedman, "We have a system that increasingly taxes work and subsidised non-work. The state is the only institution on earth that produces nothing of its own and yet attains money from other individuals on a large scale. The only comparable entities that operate in the same way, albeit in minuscule scale by comparison, are organised crime families and thieves." Definition of taxation. Noun. 1. The act of taxing. 2. The fact of being taxed. 3. A tax imposed. 4. The revenue raised by taxes. Synonyms. Theft, robbery, stealing, thievery, larceny, robbing, pilfering, purloining, shoplifting, burglary, raid, hold up, appropriation, misappropriation, embezzlement, heist.